Hey, what's going on? You know who it is. Today we're going to read segment 3, section 2, entitled Junyo versus Atsuko. So let's dive right on in. His father was dead. In the past, he believed his father left the family. He never gave him much thought, especially after Takashi became a part of his life. Whenever he used to question his mother, Yoshino, about his father, she told him his father had to take care of some business. She told him there was no telling if he'd ever be able to come back from it. He accepted that. The expression on her face whenever he asked about him, the tone of her voice whenever she answered him, made him eventually stop. Thinking about it now, her expression, the tone of her voice, revealed to him she knew the truth and always struggled with lying to him about it. Maybe she believed what she told him. Maybe Akira learned later, without her knowledge, their father died. Now, he believed Akira led him here to learn that truth. To hear it like this informed him his father hadn't only died. His cousins made it known someone murdered him. He didn't quite understand why his father's death, a man he hardly remembered, let alone knew, caused lightning to spark across his body. He stood across from Atsuko, a powerful, skilled, genetic arrow energist, and his cousin. He remembered the family his father had here after listening to her. She pulled him further out of the fog that clouded his memories. He glanced at the three older adults nearby. His father had three younger siblings, two sisters and a brother. The three of them watched the fights. He would only learn more about them, this situation, and his father's murder after he defeated Atsuko. With her defeat, he could talk to those people who knew his father. They could possibly explain to him how he forgot his father, how he forgot them. He and Atsuko watched each other. Her first attack put some distance between them. She walked toward him. She held out her hand and brought his firearm into his hand. Atsuko took a deep breath. She expected his attack. She stood still in anticipation. He brought a lightning bolt down on her. She exhaled. The lightning bolt passed through her and ravaged the ground. He began an assault, bringing multiple bolts down upon her. They too passed through her and struck the ground. He watched her place his firearm in her jeans at her back before she continued her walk toward him. She became like air to avoid danger. This ability capable by the highly skilled arrow energist. The only way he could harm her was with his thunder, but she took his firearm, which allowed him to use his thunder energy. He had to retrieve his firearm. He let the lightning fall from the sky continuously and watched Atsuko let it pass through and around her. He took his opportunity to run toward her. He assumed she wouldn't be able to hold her form and attack him at the same time. He was wrong. Before he could reach her, he found himself within a contained tornado. A moment later, she sent him high into the sky. Atsuko dissipated her tornado. He fell. Junyo and Atsuko watched each other as he plummeted toward the ground. He held on firmly to his hat. She doesn't have it in her to kill someone. Letting him fall to his death was a bluff. She thought she could scare him. He analyzed her. Slowly, he analyzed her like he analyzed all his opponents. He'd finish her like he finished them, once he saw how she acted and reacted in conflict. He could land beside her in an instant, if appropriate, but until he further mastered that skill, it wouldn't help him overcome her. With no way yet to stop her, it would put him in a compromising position. He decided to launch more lightning bolts, to use the air around him to pull him toward the ground faster before he could attack. She noticed his repeated actions. He noticed that instead of evading his bolts like before, she chose to disrupt him. Her air form took a lot of energy. Its use began to exhaust her. His firearm. She shouldn't be able to change his firearm in her air form. He stared at his firearm from his position, the ground drawing closer and closer. Junyo caused lightning to come from the sky, a single bolt once more. This time he turned away from her. He closed his eyes, free-falling and listening intently. Junyo heard a soft whisper in his ear. He couldn't make it out at first, but after it repeated itself several times, he understood Atsuko's words. You will see what I want you to see. He turned around and opened his eyes, looking in her direction. She wasn't where he launched his lightning. He didn't search the ground for her. He didn't want her to realize he no longer saw her illusion. Atsuko was not only an arrow energist. Like Shinjiro, she was a mentalist. She couldn't control people like Shinjiro, but she could implant thoughts in their heads, affect them and their actions. Some people use the term linguistic manipulation to describe this particular ability, while others simply called it hypnotic influence. She never took his firearm. She made him think she had long enough so he wouldn't use it against her. Her first attack gave her the time to remove herself from the fight and project her illusion. The ground came at him faster than he realized. He unleashed bolts from his hands at the ground. His bolts slowed his descent. When he got close, he took his firearm in his hand and shot the ground at an angle with thunder. The shot sent him to his right. He landed and skid across the ground. He saw her. To throw her off, he fired a thunder shockwave in the direction of the illusion, but quickly about-faced and struck the real Atsuko with a jolt of lightning. She fell on all fours. One of the older women from earlier came to his side. You're done, she said. Atsuko lifted her head but didn't stand. Mother, Atsuko said softly while trying to catch her breath. I can still fight him. With that one attack, her mother said, he could have killed you. She turned her gaze on Junyo. He didn't because he knows something you don't. What would that be? Atsuko stood up, confused. You two are related, she said, still facing him. Atsuko stared at her mother. He didn't murder Noboru, her mother said. He's Noboru's son. Speechless, Atsuko stared at him in disbelief. Junyo turned from Atsuko to face her. You're my aunt, Noriko. You were his younger sister, but also the eldest sister. You're correct, Noriko said with a nod. I'm so sorry, Atsuko said. Junyo and his aunt gave Atsuko their attention. Had I known, Atsuko said, bowing repeatedly, I never would have fought you. Which is exactly why you didn't, Noriko said. I apologize for keeping you in the dark, but this fight had to play out a certain way for his benefit. These fights have to play out a certain way for their benefit. She glanced in Hugo and Guinness's direction before refocusing her attention on her daughter. I think I understand, Atsuko said, but I don't think Chiyoko and Tsuyoshi will take it that well. I thought there might be more to this. She turned to Junyo. When I first saw you in the lobby, your face seemed familiar. After so many years, it's you. I remember you. She revealed a radiant smile, happy to see her long-lost cousin again. He didn't smile. I can't remember you. I couldn't remember this place. My memories are returning in pieces. I apologize if I hurt you. You're fine, Atsuko said. I've gotten in worse fights with Kyoko, but I'm lucky you held back with that last attack. You have great control. Regarding our fight, Junyo said, I realized you were a mentalist, but you were predicting my movements. How? Because I implanted your movements in your head, Atsuko said. I could predict what you would do, but on top of that, I'm also a seer. I can't see a clean future or past, but I have the ability to see how a given situation might work out. Seeing images of future outcomes gives me an advantage against my opponents. I saw my illusion would fool you. I didn't see my defeat. Atsuko was a mentalist and a seer. Akira was a telepath and empath. He always thought Akira received her spirit abilities because of who she was, especially her empath ability. He began to think she inherited them through her father's side of the family. I want you to know I wasn't trying to kill you, Atsuko said. I was trying to force you to admit to your crime and surrender. Junyo nodded. Talking to you at the bar, you never struck me as a person who would take someone's life. You saw through my illusion and managed to turn the tide rather quickly, Atsuko said. I should put more effort into my training. Without the sense of who you were, Junyo said, I would have been at your mercy. I have never encountered a seer like you. You are a skilled opponent. Atsuko smiled with a nod. He revealed a short smile in return. He hadn't meant to smile, but she reminded him of his life before he changed. He let the smile fade before he faced Noriko, who watched him without saying a word, waiting. You had a sister, didn't you? Atsuko asked. Where is she? I'm meeting her in Lunaria, Junyo said. When you meet with her, you two should come back here together. Junyo gave her his attention once more. He rested his eyes on her. He nodded in agreement. He wouldn't mind learning about the family he had forgotten. Yoshino. His mind went to her and how she took on the role of his and his sister's mother. I see him in you, Noriko said, breaking the silence that had settled between them. I see your mother in you, too. She had known his biological mother. Was she waiting for him to gather his theories and ask her questions concerning his past? He wouldn't keep her waiting. Why don't I remember them? You already know the answer to that question, Noriko said. She glanced at Atsuko. He glanced at Atsuko. My father was a mentalist, Junyo said. He erased my memories. Noriko nodded. He erased Akira's memories too. He made us believe Yoshino was our biological mother. Noriko nodded a second time. Why would their father erase their memories and send them with Yoshino? Sakamoto Rie, your mother, asked him to do it, Noriko said, as if she read his mind. Why? Was the question Junyo asked himself. Akira came to me and told me what happened to them, Noriko said. She wasn't reading his mind. The reason she continued to look at his face so intensely was because she was reading the subtle movements in his expressions. She was reading into his silence, perhaps like she did with his father. When did Akira remember everything, or how did it all come back to her? He heard sadness in Noriko's voice, even though it was steady. She didn't look at all happy either. She hadn't known the truth until Akira told her, but she had suspicions all that time. The reason why he and Akira hadn't been left with this family was because their father hadn't wanted any of them to know the truth. He told me it would happen, Noriko started, but I never believed him, especially the way he loved her. I still can't believe it. Your mother was one of the few women I could stand, or maybe I could stand her because she was the woman your father chose. She paused. Akira told me everything happened for a reason, and she wanted me to be the one to tell you. Junyo realized she was taking her time to prepare herself for what she had to tell him, but he figured it out. I'm angry, Noriko continued, but there's nothing I can do. I couldn't force Akira to tell me the whole story. She said she couldn't, but she wanted us both to know that Rie had a good reason for doing it. She killed our father, Junyo said. Our mother murdered him. Atsuko suppressed a short gasp. Noriko nodded for the third time. You kept this from me, he thought. He focused his thoughts toward Akira, even though he knew she wouldn't respond. You've been keeping secrets for years. To protect me, you waited before you informed me of this tragedy. With this new information, I now know the secrets we'll uncover, and the truths we'll eventually learn will be worse than this. We'll have to be prepared. The expression on his face didn't change. From the corner of his eye, he noticed Atsuko watch him with concern. At his side, he clenched his fist. Noriko noticed. Rie is still out there somewhere, Noriko said. Akira told me so. After she said this, he saw her notice the spark of lightning that crossed that same fist. Are you okay? Atsuko asked. People die, Junyo said. Rie committed a murder. Saying her name felt strange to him. I punish people for committing heinous crimes. I will learn her motive from either her or my sister, and if it isn't acceptable, she will die. He hadn't meant to say those words aloud. Lightning sparked across his fist, and for a moment he struggled to keep it under control. Atsuko suppressed another gasp, but Noriko wasn't fazed. Akira must have told her. Even though she probably hated the thought of it, she wanted him to avenge her brother. You're not serious, Atsuko said. You're angry. You wouldn't. Lightning sparked across Junyo's whole body, which he could see had confirmed for Atsuko that he would. I would, Junyo said without facing her. The punishment for murder is death. That's horrible. That's illegal. What about innocent people? What about her being your mother? Yoshino was his mother. Rie changed their lives. She changed everyone's lives. She murdered her husband. She put her children in the custody of someone outside their family. She took away a father, but also a brother, a son, and an uncle. He took the lightning from his fists, from his hands, and the bolts struck the ground. He had to clench them tighter to calm himself and respond to Atsuko. I've only ever made one mistake, Junyo said. His emotional response had led to his earlier confession. He cursed himself for it. He remembered leaving his old friends for dead. It's the only one I've ever made. What surprised him was that he never had. He had decided what he wanted to do with his life was to punish those who brought ruin upon others. Those who took lives for the wrong reasons or no reason at all, he couldn't allow to live. They deserved to die. Many people disagreed with him. Akira disagreed with him. No one would shake him from his belief. What gives you the right to take people's lives? Atsuko asked. He could hear Hugo, asking the same question. Why are you not in prison? Atsuko asked. He remembered how easy it was to keep everything secret when he was on his own. He hated emotions because whenever he lost his control, they affected his actions. He never should have told her what he planned to do. He wasn't supposed to say anything, but he couldn't ignore that he had. You and many others don't agree with what I do, but there are people who do. Like the government, Noriko said, answering Atsuko's unasked question. Junyo thought of Guinness who, even before he had learned the truth of the matter, agreed with what he did. That surprised him too. Ironic, considering Guinness reminded him of his old friends, their desire for strength, their bravado. They're always trying to prove they were better than others. People made mistakes. He believed no matter how many mistakes people made, or how many times they made the same mistake, they could not change. But because of Guinness and the truth Shinjiro had unveiled years earlier about his old friends that he ignored, a thought struck him. He wanted to ignore the thought, but he couldn't because some truth rang to it. Some events, situations, could redeem people. People could even redeem themselves. They didn't need him to do the work for him. No. He had done too much in the name of his belief to entertain that ignorance. The government, Atsuko explained. Mother, this is ridiculous. Aren't you going to say anything? Say something. I haven't known Junyo any significant amount of time to lecture him about life. Truthfully, I'm not sure what I could say to him. That's his mother, but not the woman who raised him. However, she is the woman who murdered his father and my brother. I can only ask you this. How would you react? Or what would you do if you found out your father killed me? Atsuko opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Then they did. I'd find out why he did it and send him to prison. I wouldn't kill him to get revenge. She tried to pierce Junyo with her gaze, but failed. It's not about revenge, Junyo said, and said not another word to her about it. It's about justice. He understood her perspective, but hers carried no weight in regards to his life. If she couldn't see his beliefs weren't about revenge, she couldn't understand his perspective. He didn't hold that against her, but he wasn't going to explain it to her. We'll lay this issue to rest, Noriko said. We have more important matters to discuss. She watched as Hugo, Chiyoko, and Chiyo walked toward them. All right, gang, that was section 2 of segment 3. Tomorrow we're going to do section 3. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, and until tomorrow, adios. Excuse me.